what's happening around the world and what's happening here at home. Good evening and welcome to Primetime News. I'm Sandro Ferdinando, and joining me tonight with our sign language interpretation is Taraka Gabriel. Let's now take a look at your headlines for tonight.
President declares open Southeast Asia's largest tyre factory in Horana. Government grants tax concessions for the promotion of the cinema industry. BASL informs Justice Minister that recruitment of 150 lawyers as chief inspectors would impact the dignity and independence of the profession. Donald Trump impeached for inciting US Capitol riot in historic second charge. Sri Lanka shot out for 135 in the first test match against England.
First up in news here at home, South Asia's largest tyre factory was declared open in Horana by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today.
The tyre factory has been constructed across a land area spanning 155 acres in the investment processing zone in Wagawata, Horana. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa was welcomed by the chairman of the company, Nandana Lokuvithana, and unveiled the plaque for the establishment. The president then engaged in an inspection tour around the factory. The construction of the first phase of the project had been carried out with an investment of $100 million. 80% of the products manufactured at the state-of-the-art facility will be used for export purposes, while 20% of the products will be sold in the local market. Tires required in the global market, including those used in SUVs, motor vehicles, bicycles and three-wheelers, will be manufactured at the factory. The construction of the factory in an environmental friendly manner is a significant aspect of the project.
The President discussed this matter with me on multiple occasions. He inquired about the location from which we would source rubber and the activities that would be carried out, while urging me to expedite the project. I think that pressure pushed us to complete the project swiftly amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. The attendance of the President is an encouragement to all employees in our factory. We need a leader like you in a situation in which we are facing multiple problems. When the reins of this country were handed over to the President, the debt stood at more than 90% of the GDP. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa handed over the rule to the former government by reducing the total debt to 70% of the GDP. To alleviate ourselves from the debt burden, we must improve our GDP. We need more entrepreneurs and businessmen to achieve this goal. When individuals like Nandana emerge in this country, we will be able to prevent the rise of mobsters like Mora Sunil and Malu Nihal.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa also congratulated Devli Yasasmi, a student of the Sri Sumana Jyoti Primary College in Ingiriya, who obtained 200 marks at the Grade 5 scholarship examination.
The government has decided to grant tax concessions to develop the local cinema industry. The Prime Minister's office said that the concessions granted under Mahinda Rajapaksa's administration during his term as president will be provided by the government. Individuals in the cinema industry had put forward certain requests seeking concessions during a meeting with Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa recently. Accordingly, the decision to grant tax concessions had been made during a meeting attended by Finance Secretary S.R. Artigala and Professor Kapila Gunawardana, who serves as the Secretary to the Ministry of Buddha Sasana, Religious and Cultural Affairs. A statement issued by the Prime Minister's office noted that import duty concessions would be offered for equipment use in the production and screening of films. The concession will be granted under the permission of the Sri Lanka Film Corporation.
Meanwhile, a broad discourse has arisen on moves to hand over India's Adani Group with a 49% stake in the East Container Terminal of the Colombo port that is considered to be a key economic hub of Sri Lanka. During yesterday's meeting involving the President and trade unions, it was revealed that the Sri Lanka Ports Authority will hold a 51% stake, while 49% will be open for investors, including the Adani Group.
The East Container Terminal of the Colombo port has a depth of 18 meters and has been constructed up to a length of approximately 400 meters. Operations at the terminal commenced after gantry cranes were set up at the site following a massive struggle carried out by the trade union last year. The East Container Terminal is of economic significance for Sri Lanka due to its strategic position in the South Asian region. Yesterday's meeting brought down a curtain on the rumours that were spreading about the East Container Terminal in the recent past. One view was that Gotabaya Rajapaksa is not linked to this and that various other individuals are pulling the strings on this matter. The other view was that the ports minister was connected to this due to certain interest he had in this deal. Another myth was that P.B. Jayasundara is a corrupt individual who was once removed from state service and that state officials, including P.B. Jayasundara, are acting based on their whims and fancies. Another group is of the view that the project is going ahead under the leadership of Basil Rajapaksa due to his ties with India. Individuals like Padhani were saying that this is a constitutional issue and that the cabinet does not have the powers to make decisions on these matters. They also argue that this conduct of the cabinet must be challenged and that a referendum must be held on this matter. But the crux of all these matters is that these individuals made several remarks on the project to protect the president that they elect to power. Just as they deceived the people earlier, the myths on this matter were dismissed to deceive the people again. All these individuals who had commented on the matter had attended yesterday's meeting with trade union representatives. This includes P.B. Jayasundara, Basil Rajapaksa and even the ports and shipping minister. All these individuals came to a common platform and issued a message to the trade union. They said that 49% will be given to India, while a 51% stake will lie at the Sri Lanka Ports Authority. They conveyed this statement as the stance of the government. This group also invited trade unions to put forward their proposal in line with this stance. There is no point in inviting proposals from external parties on this matter. They are saying that this will not be sold. For the sake of argument, let us accept that it will not be sold. But they are saying that investments can be made. Regardless of the name in which this port is taking place, the Sri Lanka Ports Authority will end up with a 49% stake instead of 100%. The main problem here is that we are losing our rights over this entity. The ownership of the country's national resources lies with the entire nation. But this entity will slip away from Sri Lankan hands. Where are the individuals who portrayed themselves as patriots before the election? If Gotabaya Rajapaksa is a patriot of this country, he must inform India that any entity will not be handed over to them and that we are capable of handling its entire operations. If we are to maintain ties between the two countries, allow us to function as an independent state.
We
don't know where these voices were when the Hambantota port had been sold. They did not protest with banners or express their concerns on this matter. The Hambantota port has been leased out to China for 99 years. Until Gotabaya Rajapaksa came to power, even our army could not enter that premises. The president then intervened and allowed our military officers to enter the port. He promised that the Colombo port will not be sold. This project will move forward as a public-private partnership. The Sri Lanka Ports Authority will hold a 51% stake in this entity.
Trade union representatives who appeared on a discussion program on TV1 insisted that the East Container Terminal can be developed as a national resource.
The Sri Lanka Ports Authority generated $263 million as revenue through ports in 2019. But since the commencement of projects, be it privatization or any other term that is used to describe these activities, we had received only $38 million through royalties and tax revenue. While $263 million had been generated single-handedly by managing the Jaya terminal, we had only generated $38 million with the involvement of other parties.
We have the required vision. We only need the required manpower to handle operations. Operations were commenced on the 27th of October 2020. We engaged in massive struggles and managed to handle 30 vessels until the 1st of January 2021. The revenue generated through the MCC Orient vessel alone is $330 million. If this is allowed to continue, we can even settle debt with a 100% interest rate.
During the discussion, we were briefed about Indian Prime Minister Modi, the problems in his country, his economic vision and his approach towards security-related matters. The presentation delivered by the President conveyed the idea of why the Indian Prime Minister required the East Container Terminal.
පරන්තය අවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ කියන මෙන්න මේ වගේ ප්‍රසන්ටේෂන් එකක් තමයි අපිට ජනාධිපතිතුමාගෙන් මට සම්ප්‍රේෂණය මට දැනුණු විදිහට.
There was a memorandum of understanding, and then this government brought that up once again and discussed it with the cabinet. Now the cabinet has appointed 2 committees regarding this. There is a project committee and there is a negotiating committee. The project committee is responsible for studying the project and coming up with a report. Then that report will be given to the negotiating committee. Then we will hold discussions with the relevant private entities and local entities and submit our recommendations to the cabinet. Only thereafter the cabinet will make a decision. Nobody has made a decision as of yet.
එතකොට ඊට පස්සේ තමයි මේ කට්ටිය තීරණයක් ගන්න කොහොමද වෙන්නේ කියලා. ඒ නිසා කවුරුත් තාම තීරණයක් මේ වෙනකොට අරගෙන නැහැ. දැන් මේ 151 ඇතුළත කොයි මොහොතක හරි රජය නොවන වෙනත් පෞද්ගලික සමාගම් මේ 151 ඇතුළට එන්න පුළුවන්. නෑ එහෙම අපි දැන් මේ මම
It is not appropriate of me to say this because I am in that committee. The President said that we will not give this 51% to anyone else. That is owned by the government. Any other entity can come and invest in the remaining 49%.
මේ 151 රජයට අයිති. ඊටු ඕනෑම කණ්ඩායමකට එන්න පුළුවන් 49 තුල.
What is the reason behind India's need for a part of a Sri Lankan port? Who is India's competition in this region? It is China. Therefore, since the Hambantota port was leased off to China, India too is seeking an entity in the Colombo port. These people are under that influence. We do not have the money to pay the outstanding interest of $5.8 billion. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's government has sought a loan of $1 billion from India. India is not willing to give us a clear response until the issue related to the port is sorted. Therefore, Sri Lanka has agreed to the handover as a solution to our financial issues.
Our greatest national resource is the sea that surrounds us. Over 8 times the size of our landmass. Let's proudly call it what it is: the Sea of Sri Lanka.
And now in a story that is making global headlines, Donald Trump has become the first president in US history to be impeached twice over last week's deadly storming of Congress. The House voted 232 to 197 to impeach Trump.
Everyone is talking about the United States of America today. This is because Donald Trump, US President Donald Trump, was impeached by the US House of Representatives. Now he's been charged with incitement of insurrection over the deadly attack on the Congress last week.
The US House of Representatives accused Trump of encouraging violence with his false claims of election fraud. He now faces trial in the upper chamber, the Senate, but not before he leaves office next Wednesday. Senators can vote to bar him from ever holding public office again. The House resolution, which passed by a vote of 232 to 197 yesterday, states that Trump's action and remarks ahead of the storming of the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. incited the rioters. 10 Republicans joined 222 Democrats in voting to impeach Trump, making the vote a bipartisan rebuke of the president's attempt to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. The impeachment article states that Trump repeated false claims of widespread election fraud and said the results should not be accepted. He also, quote, willfully made statements that in context encouraged and foreseeably resulted in lawless action at the Capitol, end quote.
Although he did not immediately comment about the impeachment, Donald Trump has released a video and conveyed a message to the people of the United States.
The incursion of the U.S. Capitol struck at the very heart of our republic. It angered and appalled millions of Americans across the political spectrum. I want to be very clear. I unequivocally condemn the violence that we saw last week. no true supporter of mine could ever endorse political violence. In Washington, D.C., we are bringing in thousands of National Guard members to secure the city and ensure that a transition can occur safely and without incident.
Speaking about the matter on Twitter, President-elect Joe Biden has said that the impeachment has held Donald Trump accountable and now the process continues to the Senate. And he hopes that the Senate will deal with their constitutional responsibilities on the impeachment while working on other urgent business of the nation. Now everyone is waiting for the final decision of the Senate, but the Senate is still in recess until the 19th of January. The head of the Senate, Leader Mitch McConnell, has said that the decision will be delivered after Joe Biden is sworn in as the new president of the United States.
Sun is the core source of energy that gives life to all that exists. From the history that we know, sun has been considered divine by humans. Thai Pongal is one such beautiful event that celebrates the divine sun.
Followers of Hinduism celebrate this festival by offering the best and newest harvest to the sun and wishing prosperity for their family and the country. They start their rituals early in the morning. The main custom of the festival is offering a portion of the newest rice, milk rice, together with a piece of turmeric to the divine sun. They also practice the custom of igniting a milk pot, which signifies the future prosperity of the family. Thai Pongal festival takes the prominence over all festivals that are celebrated in conjunction with nature.
Let's now take a look at the developments in the mass vaccination programs that are being conducted in the world and also the progress in bringing down a vaccine for all Sri Lankans.
Indian Health Ministry officials confirmed on Monday that Bangladesh will get the first phase of the Oxford-AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine from an Indian pharmaceutical company by the 25th of January. Bangladesh Health Service Director Dr. ABM Khurshid Alam said, I quote, "We will bring 5 million doses of the vaccine this month as the first phase and will distribute it all to the people," unquote. India is gearing up for one of the largest mass vaccination exercises in the world starting on Saturday. The South Asian country plans to inoculate 300 million people, or more than 20% of its 1.3 billion population, against COVID-19 in the first phase of the exercise. Meanwhile, Singapore Health Minister said yesterday that more than 6,200 people have received their first doses of the COVID-19 vaccine since Singapore kicked off its vaccination drive, with 8 vaccination centers to be set up by the end of February. While countries in the region are gearing up to begin their vaccination programs, what progress has Sri Lanka made in bringing down the vaccine to the country?
The priority list indicating those who should receive the vaccine first is currently being prepared. If at any time after the first week of February an announcement is made that the vaccination program must begin, we have made all necessary preparations to launch that program.
During the visit of the Indian Minister of External Affairs to Sri Lanka, it was revealed that an agreement was reached to bring down the vaccines from India. Oxford's AstraZeneca vaccine is currently being produced by the Indian company Serum, and a number of other vaccines are also being manufactured in India.
It should be mandatory that we get down vaccines that have at least received emergency approval from the World Health Organization so that we can ensure that there will be no side effects. Just bringing down a vaccine is not enough. There are some vaccines that are produced in India that haven't been accepted even by the Medical Council of India. We are also receiving reports of some variants of the virus in South Africa that are posing a risk to the effectiveness of the vaccine. So the vaccines that are produced must be able to fight against these variants as well.
Meanwhile, the Director General of Health Services said that there is no risk of the new COVID-19 variant that is potentially spreading in the country.
We have conducted PCR tests on everyone who came to Sri Lanka from the United Kingdom and we're examining them for the virus. We only found one person who was positive. We have directed them to a special quarantine center. Therefore, there will be no effect caused by this strand in Sri Lanka. A new variant of the COVID-19 virus that was initially reported in the United Kingdom was detected in a patient identified in Sri Lanka yesterday. Meanwhile, 2 new variants of COVID-19 were identified in the US following tests carried out on patients in the state of Ohio. According to researchers of Ohio State University, the new variants of COVID-19 cannot be prevented using the existing vaccines. Another variant of COVID-19 was recently identified in South Africa as well. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization said COVID-19 was yet to be brought under control in most of the world. WHO Chief Emergency Officer Dr. Mike Ryan said in Geneva that the new variant has increased the risk of COVID-19. Grappling with another rising wave of COVID-19 infections and fearing the transmission of new mutations of COVID-19 from abroad, Japan has once again tightened its border controls by temporarily banning entry by all new arrivals, including Sri Lanka.
After months of negotiations between the World Health Organization and China, a team has arrived to the city of Wuhan to investigate into the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic. A group of 10 scientists will interview people from research institutes, hospitals, and the seafood market linked to the initial outbreak. They will undergo 2 weeks of quarantine between beginning their research, which will rely upon samples and evidence provided by Chinese officials. The team will investigate the animal origin of the pandemic.
Meanwhile, in news here at home, during a meeting yesterday, Propaganda Secretary of the JVP, Tilvin Silva, made a revelation about the sugar scam that has caused losses amounting to billions of rupees.
Although the voters have been neglected, the president has ensured that the businesses that supported him are being treated properly. The tax policies have been amended to pave the way for these businesses to make profits. A special commodity levy of 50 rupees was imposed on a kilo of sugar. Because of the levy, the consumer was compelled to purchase a kilo of sugar at a price of 130 rupees. After Mahinda Rajapaksa took over as the finance minister, this levy was slashed to 25 cents per kilo. Imported sugar into the country. Instead of paying a levy of 50 rupees, this company paid only 25 cents per kilo to release their stocks of imported sugar. However, this company continued to sell a kilo of sugar at 130 rupees in the market. Did the consumer benefit from the reduction in the special commodity levy imposed on sugar? Did the price of sugar fall to 80 rupees per kilo? The general public did not benefit from such a move, and neither did the government. Imported coconut oil to Sri Lanka. At the time of the importation, the levy imposed on imported coconut oil per kilogram was 150 rupees. The levy was implemented via a gazette that was issued after Mahinda Rajapaksa took over as the Minister of Finance. Another gazette was issued few days later stating that a 25 rupee concession will be provided for every kilo of imported coconut oil. Thereafter, another gazette was issued stating that the levy imposed on imported coconut oil has been reduced to 125 rupees per kilogram. Company used both of these gazettes to release their coconut oil imports from customs. They produced both gazettes to customs and paid only a levy of 100 rupees for every kilo of coconut oil. A few days later, the gazette that was issued to provide a concession of 25 rupees expired, and the levy returned to 125 rupees per kilo. The government has suffered losses amounting to billions of rupees due to the scandals that have taken place in the importation of sugar and coconut oil.
ආණ්ඩුවට වෙච්ච පාඩුව තෙල් සහ සීනි වලින් රුපියල් බිලියන 10ක්. මේ එකක් විතරයි.
The worst disease that can grip a nation is corruption. And the essential vaccine to fight it is the truth. News First. The truth as it is.
Still in local news, the president of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, President's Council, Kalinga Indathissa, has written to the Minister of Justice, President's Counsel Ali Sabri, regarding the proposed recruitment of 150 lawyers to police as chief inspectors. In the letter addressed to the minister, the BASL president states that the proposal to recruit 150 lawyers to the police department as chief inspectors must be examined carefully before being implemented. He writes that the BASL is of the stance that all relevant parties must be consulted prior to the implementation of such a proposal, and adds that the BASL has not been invited or notified of any such consultation yet. President's Counsel Kalinga Indathissa in his letter highlights the need to first consider why there is a need for 150 lawyers to be recruited to the police department. Drawing on the evolution of criminal activities in the island with specific focus on digital crimes, Kalinga Indathissa, President's Counsel, expressed his appreciation to the Minister of Justice for his efforts to introduce new laws and amend existing laws to suit the current times. He, however, states that the recruitment of 150 lawyers as chief inspectors would adversely impact the dignity and independence of the legal profession. The letter points out that the BASL is of the stance there is a recruitment for lawyers to assist the police department in handling their caseload. The appropriate course of action would be to establish a separate legal department dedicated for prosecutions at a court of first instance. The letter further adds that the BASL is of the stance that this department should fall under the purview of the Attorney General and not the Inspector General of Police. The President of the BASL requests the Minister of Justice to reconsider this proposed move in light of the possible impact it could have on the code of ethics of the legal profession. The letter states that the BASL is open and ready for discussions on these matters at any given time. The Department of Meteorology says that the provinces of North, Central, Eastern, Central and Uber will experience several spells of showers from time to time. The department says that some areas will experience fairly heavy falls exceeding 50 millimeters as well. The department also added that showers or thunder showers would occur at several places elsewhere after 2 p.m. The Department of Irrigation said that spill gates of the 27 reservoirs out of the 73 have been opened. The Anuradhapura district is currently experiencing heavy falls and 6 spill gates of the Nachaduwa reservoir has been opened. The spill gates have been releasing the water to the Malvatoya, and because of this, the Malvatoya road, which is the entry road to Anuradhapura sacred grounds, has been inundated. Due to the malfunction of one spill gate of the Tavakulama reservoir in Vaunia, the remaining 3 spill gates had to be opened by 2.5 feet each. The Vaunia-Bogaswava Padavia road has been submerged 15 meters in water in the Moragoda area due to the spill gates of the Padavia Vava being opened. Transportation has been hampered along the road, and Sri Lanka Navy has deployed a boat service for the convenience of the residents. The Polonnaru district too experienced heavy rainfall in the past few days, and as a result, spill gates of the Parakrama Samudra and the Kaudulu reservoir were opened. Many lowlands were inundated following this move. Farmers lament after their crops were completely destroyed. All cultivated crops in the previous season in the areas of Madirigiriya, Gurugodala, Divulpitiya and Divuldamana has been entirely washed off. There's nothing we can do. I cultivated my crops after being indebted for several banks. Now the paddy lands have become like the Kaudulla River. I request the authorities to provide us with some compensation for our losses. The farmers are engaging in cultivation with humble expectations. Human Rights Watch has said that Sri Lanka's human rights situation has seriously deteriorated at present.
In a report published yesterday, Human Rights Watch noted that minority communities are facing discrimination and threats in the country at present. It added that attempts have not been taken to address false accusations that individuals of a minority community were deliberately spreading the COVID-19 virus. The South Asia Director for Human Rights Watch, Meenakshi Ganguly, urged governments to speak out against abuses and press for a UN Human Rights Council resolution that addresses accountability and the collection of preservation of evidence.
Professor Shanika Himburegama assumed duties as Sri Lanka's ambassador to France and the permanent delegate to UNESCO this month. Now, upon assuming duties, Professor Shanika Himburegama had highlighted the importance of strengthening economic and social ties with France to achieve the president's vision. Professor Himburegama had assumed office as Sri Lanka's ambassador to France and the permanent delegate to UNESCO on the 8th of this month in Paris. The Global Youth Climate Network, an initiative of the World Bank Group, has appointed Sri Lankan entrepreneur Tala Rafi as a climate ambassador for 2021.
GYCN is part of the World Bank's Y2Y community, a network of young professionals dedicated to inspiring, engaging and empowering young people in global development. Talal Rafi is an entrepreneur and a consultant who works across multiple fields in developing entrepreneurship. Talal has been an advocate on the topic of climate change through his work in entrepreneurship development. He mentors and advises startups in ensuring that their business models are environmentally sustainable and mitigate climate change.
In sports, it's cricket. The first test match between Sri Lanka and England began at the Galle International Cricket Stadium today. At the end of the first day's play, England had scored 127 for the loss of 2 wickets in their first innings in response to Sri Lanka's score of 135. And with that, wrap up news for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. Do take care and good night.